Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bunbun, and this is our reaction and review to The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, which is a really, really long title, by the way. This is season 2, episode 1. It has been a long wait, but we are now back in France. Bonjour to everyone who is out there.
We're back in France for 5 minutes. Like, let's be honest here. This episode was not really what I thought it was gonna be. This is Daryl Dixon season 2. I
Yeah.
understand that there's also the Book of Carol that's attached to this, and I expected to be spending a good amount of time with Carol as well, which I'm really thankful for. I like this character tremendously, and it's not just because she looks like my best friend Jen. I love this character. She's just so bad, and
Yeah.
like she's so strong and she's so smart. But this is Daryl Dixon season 2, and to have spent the entirety of season 1 with Daryl and Laurent and everybody out there and have this big cliffhanger and all these things that were happening, to spend like 5 or 10 minutes of this episode out in France, I was really disappointed with that.
I feel a lot watching this episode like The Walking Dead. You guys need to have more faith in your franchise. You need to have more faith in your fans, because if you were willing to do a million seasons of Fear the Walking Dead, which occasionally was good and occasionally was just awful, and The Walking Dead World Beyond and all these other shows, why is the Book of Carol not just its own thing? Like,
Yes.
I really came out of this just feeling like we should have the Daryl spin-off. We should
Yes.
have a Carol spin-off.
Yes.
Yeah. If you guys want to do crossovers or things down the road, I know everybody loves Daryl and Carol together. Like, I get that. I understand wanting to make them together, but it felt to me a lot watching this episode like you guys didn't have enough faith in what you did in the first season with some of these characters. Like, I loved Isabel. I really
Yes.
liked Laurent. We were
Yes.
seeing interesting evolution there from Daryl. I don't think we needed to throw Daryl and Carol together at this point this quickly. I just think it kind of speaks to, we're going to take away these other people that you like just because we all know you like Daryl and Carol, and I'm not sure it needed to work like that.
No, we needed Daryl Dixon season 2 with that huge cliffhanger that we had, which
Yeah.
just kind of got yada yada away. It was like 2 weeks later, everything is fine.
Yeah.
We needed to have Daryl Dixon season 2. We needed the Book of Carol season 1, and
Yeah.
then we could go into whatever was going to come next when they reunite, that it would then just be The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon and Carol, and that would be what it would be, and then we just move forward with the two of them together.
Yeah, well, we're going to get so much more into everything we did see for Daryl and Carol within this episode. Before we do, hit that subscribe button, because we are here covering The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon all season. Plus, this is a very exciting time for us in the greater sort of horrorscape, because we are in the midst of From on MGM Plus, an exceptional show, and Grotesquerie just started on FX with its first 2 episodes. So we've got all of that great stuff happening as well.
Grotesquerie is so good. Like, if you are really getting into the Halloween spirit, in October here, that this is the show for you. It's really quite good. And also follow us over on our Patreon. We'll have a link for you below. We are covering The Penguin exclusively there with weekly review videos for all of our Patreons. So if you want to check those out, join our Patreon. Thank you so much to everyone who has.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, where should we start here? Let's just start with Daryl, because it's technically his show. So let's kind of see where we are in the early going. We have a Rocky-esque training montage with Daryl and Laurent, which I really, really enjoyed. And then we had Daryl second guessing himself being in France. And I just sort of felt like, didn't we already have this in the finale?
Yeah, and so it's 2 weeks later, so I expect that he still would be. I mean, when we last saw him, he was basically waiting for a boat to take him back to America, and then Laurent showed up and was like, "Hey, I'm getting attacked."
Yeah.
And so while Daryl's waiting for the next opportunity to be able to get back, and it's like, "Yeah, I'm wondering if the people that I left behind are wondering about me too." I'm like, yeah, he would still be wondering. That's only been 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feels like what's going on in France isn't really enough. We're not getting enough screen time. We saw Jeanette for like a second, and she's such a good villain. Guys, please just bring us back to France.
It's frustrating because I think she's a great villain too.
Oh, she's so good.
I think we need to spend more time with her. We need to spend more time with villains on this show and in the larger franchise in order for us to care about them. Like, there are reasons why everyone from the governor to Negan are sort of iconic within the Walking Dead world, because we spent time with them. We understood their motives. We understood their organization. And by putting all this focus on Carol, we're really taking away from whether it be, some of the various minions that are underneath all of this, even just foils, like the differences of opinions when it comes to how to bring up Laurent. Like, all of this stuff gets shortchanged in that we're only seeing it for a couple of minutes. And so it feels a lot more like, here's exposition to allow you to understand what's going on in France. So it's like, okay, we're not forgetting about it, but you guys are just telling us things. You're not really showing us development.
Yes, this feels very much like when we saw what happened, that huge cliffhanger with Glenn, and he's underneath and all the walkers are around. We're like, oh wow, there's no way he's getting out of this. And then the next episode was this huge Morgan episode, and everyone was so mad about it, even though that episode, go back and watch. If you're one of the people who was mad about it, it's so good. It's the timing of it was so bad, because we were all like, oh my God, we need to know what happened to Glenn. Everybody tuned in then that next week to know what happened to Glenn. And it's like, and here's an hour of Morgan. And it's like, no, we want to know what happened to Glenn. And that's where I kind of am with this, where it's like, I'm very happy to see Carol back. And the story that they're creating for her, man, it's good. That lie that she told about Sophia, oh my goodness. Like, there is so much meat on that bone over there.
Yeah.
But it's completely just pushing everything else that we've been following, everything with Jeanette. Like, Laurent is supposed to be this really special character that's going to change the world. And we saw him for a second.
Yes, we barely had any Isabel either, other than the conversation about whether or not, she's happy there at the nest. And I've already been out there saying it. I really, really like Isabel. I mean, I'm probably a Daryl and Isabel shipper at this point. Not to the point where I'm like fighting with people online over it. I'm not going to that level of shipping, but
I am not a shipper of anybody. I just, whoever is sort of right for him or not right for him, really. The real about Daryl is that it feels like this franchise is very afraid to have him have any sort of adult relationship with anybody, where we all know that he has gone through a lot in his life, and it has made it extremely difficult for him to open up to people in general, let alone a romantic relationship. So it's not surprising that this character is not having any sort of deeper romantic relationship with anybody. It's not unbelievable. But at the same time, he has really opened up to Isabel. He's started to open up more to Laurent. Their relationship hasn't developed to the point that I'm like, oh, they're definitely getting together. But, it's not out of the realm of possibility either.
I'm just really worried going into this season in general that we're going to kind of keep shortchanging the Isabel character in particular, because
I'm worried.
It just feels like I have not seen as much of Clemens Posey out there in like the pre-season press as I have pretty much any other major character on this show. And I'm going to be so mad if they take Isabel away at this point. And it's not that I don't like Daryl and Carol, because I really, really do. I've got like this deep-seated nostalgia for them, but I think it's also okay to bring in new characters, allow people to evolve and see all sorts of different relationships. Because at this point, both Carol and Isabel in particular, these are women who have experienced Daryl at different points in his life, and they have these sort of preconceived notions of who he is and what he's capable of. And I think having them sort of be together and forge this sort of interesting friendship, I think could be really, really fun. And I'm worried that we're not even going to get that.
Yeah, their friendship and, the relationship that was developing there last season was really interesting. It's been a long time for me when they've actually developed new characters that I'm really invested in.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like a whole episode of Dead City where they introduced us to a whole group of characters and then they all got killed in that same episode.
Yeah.
It's very common for The Walking Dead to bring in characters that we don't see that much of, and then they just kill them off. And even characters that get a bit of a bigger role, but they're not A-listers, but they're B-listers, like in Isabel, and then just kill them off. It would be nice to see them just really breathe life into a character like Isabel and keep her around. You can have a show for Daryl where these two women both exist and it's okay.
Yes, this doesn't have to be a situation where we either have one or the other. So just march over to the Louvre, because I know the Louvre is going to be a part of this season at some point. Go get a suit of plot armor and put it on Isabel. So, because I already know you guys are not killing off Daryl and Carol. Like, that's fine. I mean, I know they're already filming even season 3 at this point, but okay.
Let's move over to Sweet Carol, who's telling some big lies.
No kidding. Like, so she is trying to find a way over to Daryl overseas. She runs into Ash, who is played by this actor who I know reasonably well because he was on The Resident for so many years. And, Ash here is a pilot who's kind of got this sweet, interesting connection to airplanes. And I think they do a good job in this episode. And, ironically, watched them kill off Ash next week. But I really came to care for that character and sort of the connection that he had with Carol.
I care for Ash more than I should in one episode.
Oh, he's just really
know.
Good.
Oh, no. He's so endearing. He's very smart. He's been able to pick up on most of the lies that Carol has told. Not the Sophia one yet that we will get to. But, the reveal that he's got this, memorial in the greenhouse for his son that he lost, and the connection that his son had to planes, and his connection to where he's staying. He doesn't want to leave his son. It's such a touching story. And we've had lots of touching stories throughout Walking Dead. But the thing that these spin-offs has done so brilliantly is made the cast smaller. And because they've made it smaller, they've made it that I have this great connection with Ash now, because they've spent so much time with just him and just Carol, where I've been able to get to know him way better than I probably would have if it was the regular Walking Dead and the cast is 50 people, right?
Yeah.
So they end up having this connection because they both lost children, except Ash doesn't know that. Carol has decided to tell easily the biggest lie she's told on the entire franchise, which is that her daughter is still alive and that Ed has taken Sophia over to France, and that she did see him flying around and did want access to this plane because she's desperate and she doesn't know any other way that she could possibly be reunited with Sophia.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe she told that lie, but I kind of could, because I know that she's really determined to find Daryl, and she will do what it takes to find her family. That's the way that she is. But even hearing her tell that lie and seeing sort of the look on her face when Ash wasn't looking, you could see that lie killed her to tell.
Yeah, I think she hated to tell it. And I think that it all brings back the question, of course, well, then why is she telling it? And I had to sort of take a minute to kind of think about this. But this is where I've landed. And, you can let me know, and you guys in the comments can let me know if I'm totally off base with this. But I kind of feel like what she's doing here is that she knows that because Ash is somebody who, cares a lot about children and lost a child and is going through all this grief, that I think she kind of felt like she needed to find a way to emotionally motivate him to want to complete this mission and having this idea of, I'm trying to reunite with my child. You know what it's like to lose a child. I need this, and you will understand why. I think that resonates in a way that's very different than, I'm looking for my friend. And while we all know that Daryl is more than a friend,
of course,
he's family. That's something that's kind of hard to articulate to somebody who you just met, and also somebody who, insofar as we can tell, Ash is a little bit of a loner. There's not like a lot of other people around him, so he may not understand that concept fully. So while I think Carol hated to tell that lie. I think she felt like she had to. I think the question now is if Ash is sticking around, and who knows at what point is she going to come clean?
Oh, when that lie comes out, and I think we all know it's going to come out at
Yeah.
some point, that is going to get messy. I cannot wait to be there for that moment.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a real question of, okay, well, what does Ash do on the other side of that? Like, I mean, maybe he just hops in a plane, flies away, and Carol never sees him again, but
He left his son's grave
yeah,
to chase after a child that doesn't exist. Like, it's going to be heartbreaking for him to find out that Carol's child has been dead the entire time and that there is no child over there. It could break Ash in a way like I don't know
yeah,
how I would deal with it. That part of Ash's story where he said he has not left this place because this is where his son is. There's nothing out there for him. I think Carol knew that that was the only way that she was going to get him to leave there.
yeah.
Him already feeling like he let his son down by not being there for him and then leaving for a child that isn't alive anymore. I
Yeah.
don't know how he gets through that.
I think it's gonna be really hard, and he might not get through it at all. I
I don't know that he does.
I just, and I hate to say this because, I don't want to watch horrible things happen on the show all the time, but I need the show to not shortchange us here and not have a situation where Ash goes over to France, helps Carol, then some zombie comes and eats him, and then he's gone before we get that moment. Like, we need to have that moment because for Carol, there needs to be consequences to her actions. And
Yes.
while she may be acting here with a very specific motive that's important to her, like she does want to reunite with Daryl, and we all want to see that, like there still has to be a consequence to her lie. And I think that's really important that we see that play out.
This lie is darkness. Like
Yeah.
it is the one of the darkest things that Carol has, we'll say, said, because
Yeah.
she's done some pretty dark things. We'll all be looking at the flowers forever. But
Yeah.
like this was really surprising because I do think that if she had spent enough time with Ash, she could have probably been able to make a different type of lie about Daryl so that when
Yeah.
she does get out there, she could be like, yeah, I'm looking for a family member. He's a brother. I know all the Carol shippers are gonna, come in the comments. They're not brothers, they're lovers.
They're already mad at me
Yeah,
anyway.
no, I completely understand. I'm not saying that they're like brother and sister. I'm just saying that she could have said
Yeah.
that this is her brother, that they are family. My brother's in France. And that way, when Daryl shows up,
Yeah.
Ash isn't surprised to not see a child.
Yeah, I mean there are other ways that she could have gone about this. There are ways that could have been easier. I don't know what her thought process was, how much she had to just think on the fly. I just think,
Desperation. She's
yeah,
in a desperate spot.
and when you're in a desperate spot, sometimes you do really, really desperate things. But all of this brings us back to our central critique at the start of this video, which is that I think the Carol and Ash stuff was good. Like,
Yeah, it
objectively
was.
really interesting and compelling and well acted. But
Yeah.
the problem is you're sort of jamming it into a sandwich with the Daryl stuff. So you've got these two different ingredients that don't really work. You're trying to taste the sandwich, and the sandwich just tastes weird.
Yeah, after finishing watching this premiere, I sat back and was kind of like, who is this show for?
Yeah.
Because this isn't just a straight Daryl Dixon season 2, and it should be.
Yeah.
And with Carol having so much of the screen time, this season is not about Daryl Dixon. This is not Daryl Dixon season 2. This is just The Walking Dead, the Book of Carol. And that's fine. But then it needs to just be that. And we need a Daryl Dixon season 2 going on somewhere else so that by the time we do have these two reunite, you can just have this connection of both of those shows. And now Daryl Dixon doesn't exist anymore. The Book of Carol doesn't exist anymore. And now it's just Daryl and Carol.
That would have been more than fine with me because if I'm being honest, we had this rescue mission with Daryl close to the end of the episode. I just didn't find myself caring. Like, I really
Yeah.
didn't, because I had not spent any time watching the build up to it at all in this episode.
There was no buildup. It was just like, oh, these people have been captured. Cool, we're rescuing them. I was like, whoa, okay. This whole episode should have been about getting these people back and how important they were last season. It was like, they're not anything this season. Stop. This was a really... It's tough because this was a difficult watch going into it, thinking I was watching Daryl Dixon season 2. Even though the content with Carol and Ash was really good, I think because I was going into this thinking it was Daryl Dixon season 2, I was just like, what is happening here?
I think how I'm sort of looking at it right now is I think the conception of this season is poor. I think the execution of the specific scenes is pretty well done. But the problem is, when the concept is poor, there's only so much you can really do to sort of lift everything up, because it's within this framework that's just not working yet. And maybe once we get to a potentially inevitable reunion here, things will start to change and shift or whatever. It's just right now in this current form, it's not fully working.
Yeah, no, it's not.
But that is what we have for Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, Season 2, Episode 1. A lot of words there. Hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any other coverage. And if you do want to support us further, join our Patreon. That link is in the description below. We are covering The Penguin exclusively there. And thank you to our patrons for your support. We'll see you here next time.